Welcome to Textural Anthologies, the podcast series that explores the personal and professional side of creative individuals. My name is Massimo Casagrande, and in the second series, I will be continuing my informal conversations with friends, colleagues, and fellow creatives to discover more about their stories, their journey, what makes them tick, and above all, their creative outlets. Today's creative boundaries are blurred more than ever, and in the second series, we will explore how creativity is influenced and inspired by other disciplines, and how, through developments in technology, social media, and new business strategies, the creative industry is evolving. Enjoy the episode. 2020 was the year that fashion and gaming became more entwined than ever before. Due to lockdown and social distancing, people were drawn more and more into the gaming world, and it became an outlet for them to release their creativity and create their own ideal worlds. With fashion weeks moving onto digital platforms, it wasn't long before brands started noticing the appeal of the gaming world, and some iconic brands began creating skins for games such as League of Legends and The Sims. However, one game stood out more than the others. Animal Crossing New Horizons was one of the top games to emerge during lockdown, and along with it, we all got to know Crossing the Runway, an Animal Crossing Instagram and Tumblr account dedicated to replicating iconic high fashion looks in-game. From recreating iconic looks from brands such as Prada and Chanel, to working with Valentino on a social media campaign, to recreating a cover for Vogue Italia, Crossing the Runway has become one of the top must-follow Instagram fashion accounts. I'm really happy to welcome today's guests, Richmond and Shel, the creators behind Crossing the Runway. Enjoy the episode. How are you guys? Hi.
Hello. Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. So first of all, welcome. We're doing this podcast where we interview people from creative industry to see how creativity is expressed through new technologies, through different disciplines. And I think we're living in a particular time where things are moving quite forward. So it's great that you guys were able to join us and talk more about what you guys are doing and how you came about doing it, and also getting your feedback on how fashion is developing through technology. 2020 was the boom year for fashion and gaming. We've seen interesting developments and collaborations. Vuitton creating skins for League of Legends, Gucci with Sims, Balenciaga doing video game shows. But most important, Animal Crossing has become vernacular for us in fashion. The most surprising thing about Animal Crossing, and I only discovered this recently, I'll be completely honest, that it's been around since 2001. And everyone just assumes it's like a new thing, but I think we all discovered it in lockdown. But I know you guys are fans of Animal Crossing. You've been playing it for, I think, over a decade. Since 2014, you've been creating looks for Animal Crossing New Look and City Folk. So you're like the pioneers of avatar dressing, avatar couture. So how did the fashion element come about, and how did Crossing the Runway start?
It started when we were just bored and New Leaf was in its prime, the previous installation of this game. We were just playing around and we were joking, haha, wouldn't it be funny if our characters were wearing Prada while we were fishing or hunting in the game? And just, wouldn't it be funny if you saw that current season, which was 2014 spring, which was the crazy female gangs, the bikini, the sequins, the faces, the fur.
Okay. Super colorful, perfect for digital.
Exactly. So it's like
they were even saying it was like the quote most Instagrammed collection of the time.
back when Instagram was so fresh.
So it was kind of perfect. Animal Crossing has like this cool feature where you can actually like customize paths, clothing. It's really, I don't think I've actually seen it in any other games. I think if you want to pull something off like that, you usually need to like mod it or something. But it's actually, it's quite ingenious. You know, it pretty much just like keeps the character model, has presets, but you're kind of just wrapping a texture around it. So it's super simple. It's super intuitive, super user friendly, but I think it's crazy what you can actually do with it.
Oh, wow. That's insane. You guys, I know you have different backgrounds. They're not really fashion backgrounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Not at all.
Okay. The fashion obsession comes from where?
I am an industrial designer, and I've always kind of toiled in the idea of maybe I could be in fashion back when I was still deciding what major I was. But I guess if you ask any person today, why are you into fashion? Because it's just so ingrained in us, especially nowadays. Kids are like wearing head-to-toe Gucci, and I'm like, how did you do that?
I'm a little newer to the scene. I would say, I mean, I always kind of clearly have tried to dress well or whatever, but I never was really like fashion until probably around when we started this. And I, met Richmond. A lot of Richmond's friends were also involved in fashion. And, I now have obviously my own friends and, kind of this account and developing it, kind of also helped solidify my relationship with fashion as well. So maybe I'm like the opposite perspective that Richmond does, where he comes from fashion to gaming, and I'm definitely more of the gaming to fashion.
So I guess also for you're seeing fashion from a completely different perspective. You have a different point of view, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, Richmond talks a lot. He pays more attention to materials and like hardware and these types of details, and I'm kind of more of the concept of, I love these ideas that they're presenting more so.
So do you find that every day you start looking at shows now and like picking the looks that you want? And how do you pick the right looks? Also, because you both come from different backgrounds, how do you agree on what looks to do?
Oh, there's a lot of
bickering,
disagreements, and like a lot of back and forth on that. But back when we started in the previous installation, we were on Tumblr as a platform. And we kind of approached it more as like a farce, pretending we were a fashion editor or a buyer, or because there was this one sassy character in the game that's no longer in the new game. But we would kind of place ourselves saying, was just at the Prada show or at the Gucci show. These are some of the looks I saw backstage. And I don't like this. I love this. We would kind of play along that kind of story. But to be specific, how we choose the look.
That's so many factors. It's like, well, first off, we're super limited with what we can actually do
in the game.
And, obviously we'd love to do these crazy, beautiful, like Valentino Couture, for example, that just happened today. Like we would absolutely love to, but the reality is it's not necessarily going to work with our limitation.
It's the shapes. There's literal.
Okay. Are you limited with garments that you can create and manipulate? Okay. You guys are so quick. I saw the Prada menswear show and suddenly the next day you already recreated some looks. How long does it take to create a look?
It really depends. Yeah, some things I would say minimum an hour. Obviously some things might be 3 hours, even some things might be longer than that, but we'll split it over 2 days.
Yeah, things like that, like, I don't want to stare at this anymore, let's pick it up tomorrow.
Obviously we're keeping up, we're watching the shows live, and so we're kind of already just thinking and deciding at that point what we're going to do, what's going to work, and maybe like that night we'll bunker down and spend 2 hours on something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it like a four-hand job? Do you both work? Is it just one of you that does the designing and the other one sort of directs? Or do you both sort of take turns on the game?
As of recent, Shel has definitely been doing more of like I wouldn't call it designing, but like, putting it together, the looks. Sometimes he passes it off to me so that I have my eye on it, or just like, could you smooth this out? Or what would you do to make this pop more? Or what colors would you do to make this effect, like the ruffle, for example? And then we take turns. Like sometimes I would 100% not touch the design, and then I would take over the creative directorship of art directing, the photo shoot, and the styling. And then sometimes Shel does like the Photoshop and things like that. Sometimes he comes up with a caption, or sometimes it's more natural. We're like, of course, this is the caption we're going to do for this.
It's definitely, I think, our weakest part, though. I think we're definitely more of like the designing.
So are you looking for copywriters?
Oh my God, that'd be great. We'll literally be sitting there sometimes for like 45 minutes, like, what are we going to caption this? And it's not our strong suit, to put it.
Do you ever get people like asking you to create stuff, like turn me into an avatar, dress me in Prada, or dress me in Valentino? Or do you ever get requests like that from people?
Yeah, definitely.
Like a couple of our friends definitely have asked us special custom made-to-measure orders.
And we've actually had like kind of more influencers approach us. I don't think they really panned out. The conversation kind of like ended. But we're definitely interested in us creating them as a character wearing specific fashion that maybe they've worn before at Fashion Week.
Okay. Generation Z, they digital natives. They don't like content pushed on them. Digital marketing has completely changed how we speak with them, how we communicate with them. As we've seen lately, fashion brands already infiltrating the gaming world. So do you think this is one way where brands enter into their world and make them knowing who brands are and then maybe later on when they start earning some cash, you'll start buying from them?
I think that's definitely part of it. And I think it's a cycle or marketing approach that has existed to the previous generation, I guess. Brands maybe today need to do a little more or be more interactive.
Like infiltrating, we were kind of talking about like different brands that we see who are, a lot of them now have presence on TikTok. And
of course, like these big brands are late to the game. And I hate this argument of like with TikTok, everything is just so quick, raw, and unnatural. But then I feel like when big brands do it, they kind of miss the point.
Right.
Not necessarily because they're like late by 2 weeks or however fast that trendy song is, but there's just...
It's all a little contrived.
I think it's tough for brands nowadays to sort of capture lots of audiences. And I think there's so much out there. And to keep a young person's attention nowadays, it's really difficult. I think not even a young person. I think even us. I mean, I get Instagram stories of 15 seconds long. I think anything above 15 seconds, you automatically just lose interest. I think everything has to be done in such a short and more compacted time. And there's too much out there. I think the nice thing about the digital is, and it's like Lucy Yeomans said, that there's this freedom of expression where you're giving the audience, the garments, in your case, that they can change the colors, the palettes. So they have this like complete freedom to actually create their own world. So do you guys agree with the freedom? Is that why gaming is so popular? Because it's this escapism?
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people were drawn to that aspect of it. I definitely think, you can't simplify how people are approaching that fantasy aspect, because I've definitely run into people who it's themselves, but maybe like this idealized version of themselves where it's, I'm wearing whatever I want to wear, or I look exactly how, and I'm presenting myself in this certain way. But I think at the same time, you also run into people who kind of take it the path like, I'm going to make this person who's not like me at all. They kind of, maybe it's like they have a completely different fantasy type of aspect. I run into a lot of like Animal Crossing players who kind of theme their island, and I think definitely back during New Leaf, like a witch theme was popular. So they would have like these weird like pagan characters. Like obviously it's not real to life. So kind of like there's definitely those aspects of like living the freedom of like, this is the best version of myself I want to be. This is an accurate representation of myself. And this is completely not me at all, but I'm having fun with the ability to make a free fantasy world no matter how I want to.
Exactly. They did this study and they found that lots of teenagers or like Generation Z, they're actually moving away from Instagram and going more into gaming because they find that they can be themselves. They feel that with Instagram, there's so much pressure of having to look the part and have this perfect lifestyle, whatever. Whereas they're all creating these gaming communities and they can actually be themselves and they feel that they can be accepted as themselves. And I think that's one word with gaming is community. They don't hang out with each other in real life, but they sort of all meet to hang out there. So something quite foreign to me still,
That's even a little foreign to me. I don't understand that, and I don't necessarily understand how it differs itself necessarily from other platforms as well. Because I think everything on the internet sort of has degree of like I'm creating a persona that's not necessarily me in real life, and even how you might perform on a Zoom call versus how you might be in a real life situation versus how maybe you're talking in a chat room. Yeah, I think maybe in their head, they're rejecting a lot of what Instagram has to offer, but I don't think they're necessarily shedding all of those
personas.
That's just maybe people are a lot more real, but.
Another thing I've noticed is that digital fashion design is becoming a new profession, and digital couture is a term that's been popping up quite frequently. There are websites. There's this one website called DressX where you buy a digital outfit. You don't actually have a product, but you buy a digital outfit. You send a photograph of yourself and you get it back in, I think in a couple of days or a week's time. And you're wearing it, and that's it. And that's like the new thing. And you just start posting this. So do you think this is going to become a new reality? Are we actually going to start just buying digital clothes? Is this going to be a change in fashion?
I think there's like two sides to that argument, question, situation. Because on one hand, today, Instagram, social media in general is such a visual thing. And everyone's just flexing and want to show this new thing that they got, whether they got it themselves or is it a sponsored ad. But there's definitely a show-off culture or just like, appreciate my my drip or my fit that's definitely going on that is very fast and replaceable and interchangeable, or it tends to be pretty fast. It's like in that situation, digital things like this can work in this environment. But on the other hand, we were discussing among ourselves that there's just some disingenuous gut feeling that you get when you see someone wear this beautiful outfit or outlandish outfit, and you question, like, because it is not 100% perfect in terms of its realism, but there's just something that's, I don't know, disingenuous about it. We're not saying that you wearing this outfit makes you unreal, but there's just something like, why are you putting on this shit?
We were also kind of talking, goes into like who is necessarily doing it as well, because we were kind of like, oh, this would be funny, like if I sent a photo and, you know, got something back and I was doing this to my 200 followers, like on my personal account, and like there was like some like humor in it and making fun of it, but I was like, these people are actually doing this for real, with kind of like the expectation that they're going to gain a following and they're going to make money from this.
And then apparently you can actually send a little video, so they'll actually animate for you, so you can like walk with this thing. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it definitely makes me a little like uncomfortable to think about. I mean, obviously, I don't think anything will ever replace the real thing, but it definitely does. It feeds into that culture of Instagram of that. I think it's seeing a lot of criticism now of it being, you know, definitely fake and influencer driven and like all just marketing and all of these
for face value.
Right.
It's a bit of a move on from when people used to like do the bad Photoshop of themselves with something, no? Like with the Celine bag, but like, and you can still see the crop marks around or something.
So it's hard to like differentiate now between, you know, what's real and what's fake. And I think that's kind of also, that's such like a issue that we've been seeing in the past 2 years, especially in the US, in terms of like what's the truth. And this is definitely, you know, not helping that situation.
It's like a new technique now. Is it called deep fake, where you can actually sort of take somebody else's face? And they did that with the Queen's speech in the UK, which is quite funny.
Yes.
Like that is so scary. It's almost a bit like Black Mirror, aren't you? Where like they morphing reality with digital, and you're becoming so difficult to distinguish.
Yeah. I studied simulation and like Baudrillard and all that in college. So this whole thing had to do with like get a representation of like the real thing, and like that representation starts to become more real to the point where, you know, you're kind of responding to this representation as the real thing. And it's not necessarily a bad thing in like intrinsically, but I think it has a lot of bad implications. Like, you know, we're having so many problems with people with body issues, and the beauty industry is like profiting crazy off of this. And it's like, none of this is really real. It's all airbrushed. It's all pixels. It's all...
I think it's great, but at the same time, quite scary.
Right, of course.
And I think culturally, there's always been an obsession with gaming. I'm slightly older, so I remember movies like Tron, and I thought that really blew my mind away, you know, with the grid, and I think it was really cool. And even like the sequel was really great. And what I noticed was, if you look at the original Tron movie and all the cyber stuff, Nicolas Cage, something he used it a lot when he was designing his collections for Balenciaga. My favorite all time, I think it was one of the first video animations, was a Dire Straits video. I mean, I still watch that when I can, because I still, you know, just to see how animation has developed, it's quite funny.
I think like you just said, it's always been somewhat present, of course, depending on the technology.
But then I did stumble across Barbie Fashion Designer, and that was so cool that you could actually design and then print stuff and use it for Barbie. So there's always been this fascination. So do you think that the new developments in technology has allowed us to satisfy or increase our obsession with gaming?
Like when we were looking at that link you sent us on the Barbie fashion, I was almost so shocked that it came out 1996, especially towards the end where you saw the old Microsoft interface. I'm like, this is taking me back. But it is shocking that it's always just been part of our desire for literally for this example, new outfits. And the image that came to mind when you brought up the Barbie conversation was Clueless in the movie, where she has her digital closet and she has a picture of herself, and she would just swipe through her outfits and decide whether what outfit she would wear.
But it's just so funny how I think movies anticipate things that become a reality now, like the swiping and like Dressed is another app where you can sort of automatically start styling. Anyone can become a stylist and start styling people.
Yeah.
We've also noticed a huge increase in virtual influencers like Michele de Souza, Shudugram. Do you think gamers or like you guys with the avatars, do you think they will become the new influencers? Will we start looking at what one of your Animal Crossing characters might be wearing or doing?
I mean, people have asked like, oh, can you use your character to like model these clothes or whatever for like a collaboration that we were going to work on. It did fall through, unfortunately. Yeah, in terms of us, people have definitely approached us and wanted our representation as the actual influencer, which was kind of like crazy to us. But
because our platform has always been, we want to take the literal model as close as possible, details in the hairstyle, accessories, and bring it to the game so that it's that funny contrast. But we've never really, well, in the game behind closed doors, of course, we have our own characters. But I think we've never really approached it that way or saw it that way, that this is our character and we're going to present ourselves on this account. It's always been the publication of our Crossing the Runway, showing the reports from the runway into the game.
But I mean, there's definitely like an interest, apparently, to people who do want these like these avatars to be the influencer. But I mean, I gotta be honest, like we looked up Lil Michaela and Shudugram and we're like, I don't know, there's something so uncomfortable about it that I'm like, I can't get behind this.
It's kind of scary to think they're not real, because they look so real.
Yeah.
There's just like that tinge though of like there's something off that I personally can't get past. But I mean, I suppose I'm like a millennial, so I'm not that digital native type. I don't know how a Gen Z person would respond to this, seeing these literally from the beginning of their lives if they're...
Absolutely. That's another thing. We've got this generation that are kind of growing up with these virtual people. It's bizarre. I saw that you also do music videos. Is that something you've always done, or is this sort of a new direction you're going to?
It's something that we came across during the whole boom of this Animal Crossing craze during 2020. And we've always toiled with the idea of doing short fashion films.
Yeah, just to like diversify our content a little bit. So it's not like
picture.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course, TikTok comes along and we're picking that up as well. But again, to diversify the content, and especially since in the peak of the quarantine in the summer, when fashion brands would do presentations, short movies and things like that. Our first one, I think, was the Chanel one, because that's the one that people were anticipating. Oh, what is Chanel going to do as a digital presentation, since they're always so known for doing the elaborate sets and easy scenes and for their runway show. So when they did that, we kind of mimicked the beach scene, the Mediterranean, things like that.
Okay.
But in terms of music video, I think when Sylvan Esso approached us, we didn't do the project for the music video. It just came naturally. It initially started with merch drop for their new merchandise, but specifically the outfit the singer Amelia was wearing in the music video.
But did they come with like storyboards about how they wanted, and then you guys created the whole world for them? Or did you sort of have a bit of carte blanche?
The real in-person video already exists, so there was a lot of inspiration to draw from.
Okay.
But of course, we cannot replicate a Ferris wheel and like a full setting in the video game. But with that, they literally left us to do whatever we want. And
it gave us nothing, and we're sort of like,
okay?
It started like I think they expected like, us standing in the game doing an emotion or something, or
just like doing actions in the game.
They kind of like tried to sneak that in with like our original agreement, and we were like, So we basically came up with a new agreement. They're like, oh, give us like a longer video, and we're like, it was interesting. It was, like, completely wasn't expected. And then from that we kind of had another merch drop with like Soccer Mommy, a few other places reach out to us to make. So it was totally like organic. But I would say fashion and music kind of exist in similar spaces.
If I'm not mistaken, did you guys also do some editorials with maybe some Italian magazines or?
Yes. So Vogue Italia approached us. So we've been doing this officially since 2014, and around 2016, towards the tail end of that, a writer from Vogue Italia reached out saying, "Oh, can we talk more about this fashion and gaming and costume and what is Prada doing in the video game?" But that kind of faded away because there wasn't a demand for it. It wasn't in the conversation. But now that pandemic hit, people were playing the game, people discovered the game, it all just kind of clicked. And so for this Vogue Italia quick article, we were just asked, like, where did this come from? This idea of putting fashion into this video game. And for just like a little extra content, we recreated for Vogue Italia, and it was Kaya Gerber wearing Miu Miu. And we try to replicate it as best as we can with like the minimal lighting and the one spotlight. But
I think it turned out really well. I think it was definitely recognizable at the time.
What is next for Crossing the Runway?
I think we're still kind of shocked, confused as to what we're doing, like how we got to where we are. Like, we always tell ourselves, like, remember, like we did stuff with Valentino, and I'm like, I still can't believe that we work with Valentino.
Is Valentino your favorite brand you've worked with, or you're not allowed to say?
It was definitely a lot of fun working with them because they very open-minded. They understood the limitations, as we've discussed, like the templates and all that stuff. But I think their approach was for the spirit of the fun of it. And I think that's the part that we found enjoyable about that collaboration. It was just, not to say that it was like a pure carte blanche that we were just doing whatever we want, but there was just a let's have fun with it attitude that we liked. But
yeah. I mean, Valentino's always been a brand that we like admire, and we've always loved what they do. So, but in terms of like our favorite, I've enjoyed working with pretty much everyone that we have. So I don't want to like.
You've become a fashionista now, so you have to you have to have a favorite. Guys, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. So nice chatting with you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. If you want to download some of the fashion looks created by Crossing the Runway for your Animal Crossing avatars, or to find out more about their projects, check out their Tumblr account, crossingtherunway.tumblr.com, and don't forget to follow them on Instagram. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and I look forward to inviting you next week to our new episode, so stay tuned, stay safe, and speak soon. Bye.